Welcome everyone back to another POV video here on the channel. I have not done a full POV video for months now, so this should be interesting. As you can see, we are here in the turbo Corolla because I've got to put some mileage on this thing. I've currently done 121.2 miles since the turbo install video, which by the time this is uploaded was a month ago. As you can clearly see, this is not my daily driver. I normally don't really drive this car in winter, just because I don't want to get road salt and crap all over it. I'm here driving it because, well, I've got to put some mileage on this thing to get past the turbokits.com break-in period of 500 miles. Now, yeah, there's some people who say turbos need break-ins. There's some people who say turbos don't need break-ins. And there have been people who have told me in my comment section that I don't need a break-in period for a turbo kit because the engine is, you know, it's an old engine and the turbo is the only new part and the turbo doesn't really need a break-in. But turbokits.com in their instructions clearly say that I should give this thing a 500 mile break-in period after the install. And whether it's necessary or not, they're the ones who made the kit, so I'm just going to follow what their instructions tell me to do. So far, with the little mileage that I've put on it up till now, it's been doing well. It hasn't blown up, it hasn't felt like it's gonna blow up, runs and drives just fine. The idle has been kind of on-off a bit weird. Sometimes the idle wants to jump around a little bit, and sometimes, like how I've driven it today, it's perfect. But I imagine the idle issue is just a tune issue, so I'm not too concerned about it. Once we get this car actually tuned and dialed in, all those problems should go away. One thing I have noticed is here on my wideband gauge is at idle, I think the stock ECU is starting to fight a little bit. It seemed to have leaned out a little bit. When this car was first running, the AFRs were jumping between 13 and 15, which is fine, and now it seems to be jumping around between 14 and 15 and a half. So it's leaned out a little bit. I mean, at idle, it's not dangerously lean. I mean, it can go up to 15. I think the ideal AFR at idle is 14.7, so anywhere around there is fine. Another thing I noticed, just like what I just did there, the acceleration at like half throttle is a little bit jumpy. In my time driving it, I've replicated it a few times, and what it feels like to me is the transmission is sort of trying to decide what gear to go into. So I think this is just a problem with it being automatic transmission. I think what's happening is the ECU is seeing that I'm only giving a half throttle, so under normal circumstances, the transmission would shift. But I think then it reads the MAF sensor or it reads something else and it sees, oh hey, there's actually kind of a lot of airflow going in, so maybe we should not change gear. And I think what's happening is the transmission's trying to do two things at once. It's trying to stay in a gear, and it's also trying to shift up one gear because the ECU is confused. And so because the transmission is trying to do two things at once, it ends up being very confused and the acceleration is kind of being a bit jumpy. Under very light throttle, it doesn't do this, and under wide open throttle or like probably 80% plus throttle, it also doesn't do this. It could be an issue with the tune as well. Maybe fueling is just being a bit weird or something. I guess we'll find out once we put this thing on the dyno and actually tune it. If it's a transmission issue, then there's nothing I can do about it. The AEM-FIC only tunes fuel and ignition timing. It has nothing to do with transmission, it has nothing to do with anything that's not fueling and ignition. So if I'm correct here, then that's just an issue I'm gonna have to live with. At around half throttle, the acceleration is just gonna be a bit jumpy. Until we put a C60 in here, I don't think there's anything I can do about that besides just live with it. It is what it is. It doesn't bother me that much, it just feels kind of weird. Another quick update about how this car is doing. Check engine light is still on. It's got a check engine light for the cat converter. and it's got a check engine light for the VSV because the VSV is unplugged as per turbokits.com's instructions. And so those are the two same check engine light codes that I've already seen. Nothing new, so it's whatever. One thing I absolutely love about having this car turbo now is it goes up this hill here and it goes up these inclines so nicely now. Before, when I would drive this car up here, it really was struggling. I had to push the throttle quite a ways down. Ever since the turbo, it can go up this hill pretty effortlessly, which is very awesome. It doesn't feel like I'm having to really wring this car out to get up a hill. It can actually just get up a hill like a normal car now. Man, this place looks really cool when there's snow on the ground. Oh my goodness. You've got the lake there, and then you've got the snow surrounding the lake. That's a cool look. I would say that this is actually my favorite part about having this turbo installed. My favorite part is not that it's faster than before, is that this car is much more usable now. This car can go up this hill now without having to downshift, and it's just nice. I actually am going to do some tests with this car, with gas mileage. Fill up this car with a full tank of gas, and then just drive it until it's empty, and drive just really casually, not getting on it, just driving around. And I'm gonna see how much the MPG is affected. I think that would be interesting. Am I just getting old now? Is that what's happening? I mean, I'm only 20, but some days when I talk like this, I feel like I'm just becoming an old man. I've just talked about how I don't care that my car is faster. I like that I can get up hills better, and that I want to see how my miles per gallon is doing. I would never have said things like this 2 or 3 years ago. What is happening to me? The road's a little wet there, so got some wheel spin. That little wheel spin back there is very entertaining. This car would never have done that without the turbo. Just like that. Just a quick pop up to 70 miles per hour. I mean, the speed limit, of course. Now see, this one, and so, yeah, see, I'm not flooring it. It's very usable to get on the highway. But then if I want to floor it, you know, the power's there, and it moves. It just feels more usable now. It just feels nicer to drive. I don't feel like I have to wring this thing out everywhere I go. You know, if I want to accelerate faster, I can accelerate faster. If I don't want to accelerate very fast, then, you know, I give it half throttle, make 2 pounds of boost, and it can still get up to highway speeds just fine. So these are sort of my thoughts with this car being turbocharged. It's more fun to drive now because it's, you know, it's faster, so of course it's more fun. This car just feels more usable now. I don't have to floor it when I get on the highway. You know, I can choose now, do I want to get on the highway quickly, or do I want to get on the highway at a bit more of a moderate pace? This is a very weird way to put it, but I feel like I have more freedom with this car, with this thing being turbo, because now I can sort of just pick and choose when I want to get on it, when I don't want to get on it. Whereas I felt like before, because it didn't have very much power before. Say if I wanted to get onto the interstate, especially if the on-ramp goes uphill, I pretty much have to floor it. If the speed limit's 80 miles per hour, I have to floor it to get up to speed so that I'm, you know, at least like 70 to 85 miles per hour by the time I actually get onto the highway. Whereas now, I don't feel like that. If I want to floor it onto the highway, I mean, I can. And if I don't want to floor it on the highway, I don't have to, and I'll still reach a reasonable speed by the time I need to merge onto the highway. That's a very weird way to put it, I think, but that's just, you know, the more I've been driving this car, that's just how I've been thinking about it. But anyway, with that is going to be it from me for this POV video. I'm going back to class now. This is a little bit of an update on the car, how much I've driven it, sort of my thoughts on this car after it being turbocharged. So hopefully what I've said sort of makes sense to you. Thank you everyone very much for your time today. and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.